Logosphere. This is Chris Stites, here as always with J.D. Roof.
Hello, good evening.
And this evening, we are very fortunate to have with us a very special guest, our good friend Jim Whitmore, James Whitmore Jr., if you want to look him up. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm fascinated to be in this like the sepulcher cave. It's very cool. It's very cool to be here. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
So, if you could maybe give us a quick introduction about, what you do and.
Well, I guess the best way to describe it is I'm in the entertainment business. I'm in the entertainment business. When I was a kid, I grew up in Hollywood. I grew up in Santa Monica Canyon. My old man was an actor. He was a successful actor. Been nominated for Academy Awards and done some shit. Renowned, wonderfully gifted performer. And we grew up hanging around, and I ended up and wanted to be an actor myself. And got into the show business and came out to California with a new bride. I got married in the West Indies. I'd gone down to Trinidad in the West Indies to get to be in a play, and I met my wife, Celicia, who's a Muslim woman from Trinidad. And we got married, and then we came out to California and tried to make a living. First thing I did was clean sewers for the flood control, and then I got a job at $10 more a week selling cigarettes out of the trunk of my car for the American Tobacco Company. And then when I got a call from the guy in New York who I'd known when I was in New York, Ralph Waite was an actor. He had a big part on a TV show called The Waltons. And he said he was starting a theater. He needed someone to help him run the theater. He needed someone to be a house manager and a guy work for him. I said I'd do it if I could read for some parts. I went into the Ralph's Theater. I read for some parts, did one play, and then the second play I was in, I got some recognition from the local people. And the next thing I know, I was working in movies and working in TV shows. And that was in 1977, 1978. And I did a TV series called Baba Black Sheep years ago about the Marine Corps fighter pilots. And, for a crypto communist like myself, it was pretty crazy to be a Marine fighter pilot. But I loved it. I loved being a performer, and I love the essence of those guys. And the military guys to this day are the coolest and most powerful people that I know. The guys who are actually in the struggles that go on, not the crazy bastards that send them there. Because I don't.
Did your father serve in the military?
Father was a Marine.
He was a Marine, right?
A lieutenant. Yes, I fought in the South Pacific, and
wow.
And he got injured, came back, and he survived, and he despised the idea of war. He never talked about it, like so many guys that were in World War II, that in my generation, his parents, so forth.
He did not romanticize the war?
Huh?
You said he despised the war?
Absolutely. It was insanity. He realized it was insanity when he was there.
And you inherited that belief from him?
Well, it was a little more convenient than that. I didn't want to go to war. I didn't want to go to Vietnam. I was a Vietnam era guy. And I'd be sitting in the front row of my high school down in the Palisades, and the Marine Corps guys would come to recruit, and they'd be making noise and talking, and I'd be in the front row giving them shit and giving them a hard time. And they'd say, "Young man, you're the kind of guy we'd like to get in and train a little bit." And I'd see you'd have to catch me first, and I'd run out. I just was a punk, a punk. I didn't want to go to war. I didn't want to get shot at. I didn't want any of that shit. I didn't have any idea what it meant.
So you're mostly against war just because you didn't want to go at the beginning?
Come on, really? Are you kidding me? It's madness.
You didn't want to go into glory?
The other day we had this Memorial Day thing here. I hope somebody's going to hear this and want to shoot me for saying it.
Yeah.
But all I could think of was the memory of kids that were shot for no reason. The memory of children that were sent into harm's way for no reason. The memory of the disastrous insanity that's going on throughout the history of man, where for real estate, for money, for somebody's ego, some psychopath's ego, masses of young children are sent to die, and it's all cool. And we write this sort of mythology that says it's the best thing in the world that could happen. And Will Rogers used to say, he said, a mother would much rather say her son was killed in combat, fighting in a war, than he was hit by a truck walking down the street in the morning. It's just something, there's a patina to it that's wonderful.
There's a glory to it, yeah.
My children, who I love with all my heart, to send them out to die for some cockamamie, political construct, which is basically what all this shit was. You look at the when I grew up in the communist, the arms race with the communists. We were fighting the communists when they were our allies. We were beating the Germans, and they were beating the Germans, and we were coming up on the Western Flank in World War II, on D-Day and so forth. The Russians were kicking the crap out of the Nazis on the other side. And before that, we even got to Berlin, we were trying to figure out how we can beat the shit out of the Russians, and they were our allies. It's in our blood. It's the nature of humanity to eat flesh and destroy others and to get their shit, I think.
Yeah, it goes way back. Chimpanzees.
The
horrible.
troops. Yeah.
The troops fight against each other.
And when you got kids and you got babies that you love,
Yeah.
to be able to blink your eyes and send them into ordnance that's ripping them, tearing their bones to shreds. It's crazy. It's madness and it's bullshit. And I don't know that but it's the way men operate. I'm sitting here, pontificating.
Claire and I saw it. You heard this movie, Freud's Last Session, something like that, Anthony Hopkins. It's this conversation that may or may have not taken place between C.S. Lewis,
right,
who was a famous Christian theologian, and then Sigmund Freud, who was kind of a towering atheist.
Right.
And so they have this conversation about, that, big question. But C.S. Lewis was in the war, and so they get into what that was like, and he was terribly traumatized by it. We were watching that.
How could you not be?
Yeah.
My old man never talked about the war until he was dying of cancer.
My grandfather was lieutenant colonel in the army. He fought in Normandy on D-Day, and but we're proud of that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we're like,
so
you're
funny.
like,
how can you not be proud of
Papa
the
Carter
courage of the guys that did this shit?
Yeah.
The young men that go into combat and follow these insane orders.
and the movies, we love.
How do you do it? You're behind a rock and the guy's shooting there, you're firing, a 50 caliber machine gun at you. How do you get up and run toward that guy to kill him to take over the beach? It takes madness, but also
Trench warfare,
extraordinary courage, extraordinary power.
The conditions are so awful.
Well, I joined when 9/11 happened. I was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And but see, my story is different because I was high as a kite, being a D-bag, and I kind of had the homies kind of look at, because I was ripping people off, and so I said, "Hey,
you had to skip town."
Yeah, let me get out of town, I joined,
a lot of guys have done it for that reason.
And the entire time I was there, I never was bought hook, line, and sinker into the whole thing. I was in the Navy, and it was wartime. I never saw anything too crazy. I was like a cop,
right?
But I just drank, and I was just kind of a D-bag, And I look back at it. I call it my best worst mistake because there is something about going into discipline like that, where you're undisciplined. Basically, we talk about that.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and I was a punk ass kid, and I think it helped me learn how to fold my clothes and do my laundry. And
I completely agree. I think it's the greatest experience.
But war is a different question.
What's attendant to it?
Yeah,
to have that experience and to grow as a human being in that way. The problem is it's attached to this in madness.
Yeah, I know.
And,
exactly.
Of obliteration.
Yeah, and all the guys in the service at the time, because we were fighting, we were going into, we stormed in with the buggies and stuff into Afghanistan at that time. So this wasn't Desert Storm. This was 9/11. And even the guys that were like the tip of the spear that I hung out with at that time, we weren't all. It's weird. The sentiment is different, with the troops.
Right.
We weren't all gung ho about it. We were kind of cynical.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's a product of the time now and too much information getting out.
And there's also sort of a gallows
Yeah.
attitude towards the whole thing that seems to be part and parcel.
To survive it, you have to sort of get bleak. About
Yeah, you kind of cynical. You get Nietzschean about it. You laugh about
But
it.
then what do you think about this idea, Jim, that we wouldn't be sitting here with these microphones and these cameras and this civilization we have and this technology, and could we really take the war and the conquest and the empires, and could we just have shaved all that off and everything would be great anyway?
No.
Or do you think that it was somehow?
I don't think so. I think
it's a
I think
tough
it's
one.
empirical. It's part of the flow of the human this human sea or whatever you want to call the ocean of our society civilization.
And so was it not worth it?
I suppose it's a price that has to be paid. But don't tell me that it's morally high ground.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that it's a righteous act.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that it's a righteous act to do this shit. It's crazy. It's the height of cynicism to send my children to die so I can sit on my ass and get a little bit more wealth or a little bit more, whatever it might be.
Oil.
That's madness.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
madness.
Yeah.
And just don't do that. You say we are monkeys with clothes on. We are going to devour each other constantly. We're going to shift in power. We're migrating around the planet constantly and taking over other people's shit. We all get our place in the sun. The United States is waning now. I feel like. I mean, it's drifting into kind of a strange state of madness and absurdity with the political world we have now. And the other more serious countries are working their way forward to take over the whatever it may be. That's all part of the natural flow of existence, I think. But don't tell me it's righteous. It's bullshit. For my son to go and die in a war, for you to get some real estate is righteous? No, I'm not doing that.
So you didn't serve in war, but you played.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly
All your
played
parts?
soldiers. I
That was
constantly
your-
played soldiers. And if my old man had not been a Marine, if I had not met a bunch of guys, because when you're doing these movies, you got technical advisors who were, a lot of them are frauds themselves, but a lot of guys who were in combat and understand the deep reality of it. Those guys get immense respect from me, every ounce of it. I remember being in the Philippines and working on this Boys of Company C movie that I was in with a bunch of guys that had been in combat, and Vietnam was insanity. It was insanity. It was like some weird Lewis Carroll construct. That none of it made any sense. No, there was no point to any of it. Everybody was running. But of course, there's a book called War, and I wish I could remember the writer's name. He's written a bunch of stuff, and it's a small book. It's called War, and it talks about the disappearance of any moral fiber, any moral causation when wars are taking place. When men are engaged in war, there is no morality. There is no right and wrong. There is simply survival. There's survival and destruction.
And otherwise normal people. There's another book, it was called Ordinary Men, that had to deal with the early parts of the Holocaust and some of these just family men that started doing these absurd, insane, murderous acts,
Right.
and started to try to understand how that could be. And we're all capable of such strange, bestial savagery if the setting is right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the horrible.
Do you think it's
reality.
possible that we all would kind of want that anyway, but it's just that the setting allows, and then the beast comes out that otherwise we have to keep a lid on in normal, polite society?
I don't know. I mean, come on. Gentleness, kindness, peacefulness, concern for your neighbor, deferential behavior towards people in your life.
I think it's our natural state.
Is a lovely way to live. It's a gentle, lovely way to live. It makes a lot of sense to me. I got 4 kids. I got 8 grandkids. I got a sort of a big legacy that I'm living in, and we all try to live gently and easily, and I think that makes sense. Going across the street to my neighbor's house and bludgeoning him with a fucking 2x4 and taking the shit that's in his refrigerator. I mean,
That was probably the way for a lot of
course it is.
world history, right?
That's what it's all about. I mean, the old, what was it, Cro-Magnon, or the Pleistocene guys.
Yeah.
They would walk around. They say they used to wear their loincloth a certain way, and they carried their dagger a certain way in their loincloth. And they'd be walking down in the bush in the tundra somewhere, and over the hill would come another guy, and he'd have a different loincloth, a little different carriage of the loincloth, and a little different placement of the dagger. And they go, "Oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Nice to see you. Yeah, see anything good over there? Any buffalo over there?" You say, yeah, cool. And they're already circling around to kill the fucking guy and take his shit. Because he's not their guy. He's not their tribe, It's madness. It's madness. But I think you're onto something. I think there's an empirical reality is that this is how humans operate.
It's almost like a purge, like look at fights, look at the Colosseum. There's something there, right? That's like the first theater, right? Is the Colosseum, watching gladiator slaves kill each other.
Sure.
But we get something out of it, right?
Well,
look at UFC now. UFC is so popular.
Professional wrestling.
Professional wrestling.
Yeah,
I mean, and I can tell you from experience being a wrestler myself, like there's something that gets exercised out of me when I do
professional
that.
sports.
Yeah, some kind of sport like that, even if it's combat.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And
I
if
get to feel it.
Yeah.
I get to be fearful of loss, and I get to, but not be.
Not killing people, not cutting people's heads off, but
Freud obviously was infamous for his sexual, everything was about sex and repression of sexual desires. But I think this, the instinct for violence and aggression is also something that is probably just so old.
Mind-boggling, right?
So old.
When the 9/11 thing happened, people jumped.
Oh yeah.
To go attack the evildoers, even though he had no clue. I mean, no one was telling anybody who really was responsible for that shit.
I think the great part of it is there's an enemy, and now we have a cause, and now we have purpose, and now our life makes sense.
And young people are the first ones that want to bite that friggin' thing off.
Yeah.
And which goes hand in hand with sending everybody off to die. They're the ripest ones. The older guys are a little cooler. I mean, wait a minute, not me. I don't think about doing that shit. I don't know, but violence, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, I'm a 75-year-old man now. And the world has not gotten better. It's not gotten more peaceful. I mean, there was a kind of an arc towards, nuclear control. There was an arc towards racial understanding. There was an arc towards, human compassion for each other. There was a sort of that was my illusion when I was growing up as a kid.
Right.
Didn't work that way.
And now it's
It hadn't
kind
worked that way.
of dipping again.
I don't think we've changed much at all. I mean, I watched Doctor Strangelove the other day.
Did you?
My nephew is a Trinidad guy, Muslim guy, and him and his wife. So we've been watching movies every night. And then we watch an Indian movie, Pakiza, or one of those crazy, wonderful Indian Bollywood movies. And then you watch one of our movies. And we watched The Professionals last night. The night before that, we watched Doctor Strangelove. And I'm telling this guy because he wasn't even aware of it. He's a Trinidadian, Indian, Muslim. He wasn't even aware that these missiles have been looking at each other, staring at each other for the last 60, 70 years.
He didn't know about the whole
And if
nuclear
you
arms
send them
race.
off, if you send one of them off, because Daniel Ellsberg went around and did a study of all the various bases and commanders in the United States who commanded nuclear stuff. They were all capable of setting that shit off. It was not the football that the president has with him all the time. Under circumstances, they got all started the friggin' World War III. It's been sitting there waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Now it's in various other countries. A lot of other countries have nuclear weapons now. Dude, it's the end of the world. It's nuclear winter for 90 years. It's forget about it, but it's sitting there. And I've had guys that guys I work with on the job, sitting having a cup of coffee in Vancouver, saying it's important to keep that shit. We have to have it because it keeps neither one of us will try it because we both got it.
Mutually assured
Matt.
destruction.
Yeah. That was a big thing sold in your generation.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
It's crazy
Yeah,
because
it is.
somebody's going to flip. And of course, now you got them in Israel, and you got them in Pakistan, and you got them in India, and you got them in England, and and there's a lot of fruitcakes out there.
Yeah.
Just takes one fruitcake.
There's a lot of fruitcakes out there, and if one of those things starts flying,
Yeah.
everybody's going to say, "Well, not me, bullshit," and then the next thing you know, we're
It's amazing it hasn't happened yet, huh?
One more time, people are something, bro. People are something.
So let's go on to you start acting
All right,
first.
so
Yeah. So you start acting first. That's what you first did?
Yeah, I started acting, working in films, and doing TV stuff, and my family's getting big, and I started to do some stuff, and I was very, very, very successful. I had a lot of fun.
Right.
And then one day, a guy wanted me, a producer named Stephen J. Cannell, had hundreds of shows, a lot of shows on the air. He said, "I want you to be in this TV series for me," and I was just being a wise ass. I mean, I'm in recovery, you guys. I'm in 12-step recovery.
Right.
I'm a wise ass. So I said to this guy, I'll do the hard, pal, but I want to direct one of them. I had no interest in directing anything. I was just being a wise ass. He said, sure. So I did the part. And then I did, by a series of circumstances, I ended up directing an episode of TV. And it came out really good. So the next thing I know, a year later, I looked around, and that's all I was doing, was directing TV shows.
Did you know how to direct? Did you figure it out on the spot?
I didn't have a clue.
By being directed, were you able to
And
learn
were you
a thing
were
or
you
two?
sober then?
When I was acting, I never
Is there much to directing? Does it
huge.
depend on the director?
It's complicated. I mean, it's wonderful. It can be nothing.
Could be nothing.
You can literally sit back and let the crew make the picture.
Uh-huh.
But I don't do that. I love every aspect of making a picture. I love every aspect of the performance. I love
Can one over-direct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. There's no doubt about it. They can make it all about them. I mean, my job is to let God make the picture. Let God make the picture. Ideas, coax people, coax the actors where they need to go. Talk a lot with the cameraman. Talk a lot with the production design people about ideas and feelings and stuff, and then let them go do their thing. Let them go do their thing. It's a fascinating process. It really is, because you do let we talk about. I'm going to use the word God here. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but you let the universe rule and let energy take over, and you end up making a lot of really good pictures. And I started in 1984, the year I got into recovery, directing films and TV shows. And I've done hundreds and hundreds of them now. And that's what I do for a living. And I love it. And I work with every kind of crazy, interesting human being, people who become massive, big stars in the industry, and made some wonderful shows that have been sort of iconic, And I've had a great time.
You still at it?
Yeah.
You still at it?
Still at it. I mean, right now, the last year we had a strike.
We did.
I had a little problem with a physical thing that I had to turn down one of the jobs I was supposed to do. But I've been working, and I got a couple of jobs lined up in August and September, and I don't want to stop.
I've heard some of our mutual friends have encouraged you to slow
everybody
down.
tells you, guys who aren't doing anything say, come over here and don't do anything.
What do you
with
think
me.
about that advice, the slow down advice?
I mean,
Slow down for what?
Slow
right?
down when you die?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of course you want to be smart. You don't want to be crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a time when I did 10 shows a year. So I was constantly working, never stopped, I do 6 or 7 now.
Is it a stressful job?
Can't be. Can't be. I've been doing it for so long now that I love it. It's almost like making love. It's just, you flow, and it's very cool.
So that flow state, actually, it's funny because that came up the other day. Being in the flow state, being almost rightly related to a power or God, right?
Yep.
Like step 3 kind of, and not, I'm not airing out 12 steps, dirty laundry, but that was something that Kurt was talking about, right? And it was interesting because when you get in the flow state, it's like you're rightly aligned with something, whatever that something is,
Right.
God or higher power, whatever you want to call it, right? And do you find yourself in the flow state when you're doing something you love, or is there some kind of co-creating happening?
Co-creating with whatever that energy is.
Yeah, whatever that
no
energy-
doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're an instrument. We're a vessel.
Right.
Shit flows through us. I mean, somebody's got to be in charge out there. Somebody's got to decide what to do.
Is that you?
That's me. I'm the director on the TV show. But what I say and what I feel and the ideas I get,
Where do they come from?
They come from somewhere else. They simply do. And it's all about love, man. It's all about love. It's all about compassion. It's all about honoring the other people you're working with. An actor, that's bullshit. No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
You don't just get annoyed with all these
It's wonderful, but
all these entitled actors and all their needs
gotta
and
deal
all
with
of their
You got to deal with it, dude.
Yeah.
You're herding cattle down the trail.
all these prima donnas. They don't drive you up the wall.
Well, but it takes what it takes. It's not easy. It's not easy to perform.
Right.
It's not easy to be a cameraman and light. You guys are messing with this stuff here in this place right now. It's not easy to do. And some people are filled with fear. And the fear manifests in all kinds of ways. Sometimes people shut down, and some people get angry and nasty, and they act like complete total assholes.
Do you think you're good at identifying that fear in people and helping them
I hope so.
walk through it?
You have
Is that
to
a
be.
part of your job?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. You have to see.
Most people would probably not think that that's a big part of a director's job.
You're moving. It's like being I would think a commanding officer in a military operation. Now get back to the military idea. How do you move this mass of energy to a place, to a given chosen destination? How do you do it? How do I get these people to make this picture? How do I do it in a way that's cheap so it doesn't cost the producer too much money?
With an iron fist, you just make them do it? Doesn't work so well?
It doesn't. You can't. There's some of that.
Some of that?
Yeah, every once in a while, but very rarely with me.
Uh-huh.
I'm a big fat dude, man. If I get angry, it's scary. Everybody shuts down.
Does that ever happen? You ever
Oh, sure.
lose it on the set?
Oh, fuck. But it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Because I'm no longer receiving.
Right.
I've shut down. I've let my fear shut me down. And that's not where I want to be. I want to be open so the energy can flow through. I mean, that's what we do.
How different is directing and acting?
Well, acting is very narcissistic. Acting is very simple. Acting is. I used to walk on the set. This guy called Fred Dreyer was an actor I worked with. He was on a show called Hunter. It was a cop show that was on TV. And I'd be talking to the cameraman and setting up a big complicated shot on the stage. And Fred would walk on the stage and go like that. That's all you got to do, Jim. Just point your camera at my face.
It's all about me.
It's all about me. It's all about me. And that's crazy. That's crazy. But it's also if you're acting right. If you're in my opinion, in my experience, you are in the world. You are part of the world. You are accepting the world, and so you can live in it. You can live in it naturally. If it's you performing, it's not so good. But I've had so many great experiences as an actor, going off to the forests of northern Georgia to be in the Long Rider movie about chasing the James Gang as Jacob Rixley in the Long Riders, a great movie we made years ago. Walter Hill made it, and everything was there. You didn't have to imagine anything. When you do TV, a lot of stuff you have to sort of pretend. You don't have the dough for the real thing. A big feature film, it's all there. All you have to do is say, okay, I'm this guy. Let's do this.
Is it that easy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just slip
Yeah,
into a whole new identity and
you
embody it.
I got a lot of energy. Actors, they gotta want to blow. They gotta want to blow. They gotta trust it and want to communicate and feel it and do it. It's frightening to be an actor, and if you're afraid, it'll shut you down.
Frightening what? Just to have this camera on you?
It's like walking into a party, and everybody turns and looks at you.
And you got to do something.
You got to do something. Most guys go out the door and get back in their car and leave.
Face turns red.
That's what it is to be a guest actor. And that's what I did for years as a guest actor in films and TV shows especially. You walk into a set, there's somebody's family, somebody's living room, really, and I just drop my pecker and do my thing. Mm-hmm. I had to do it immediately. Had to do some goofy ass shit just so, I'm here. Don't f with me, because otherwise I'd be terrified. I don't want to even think that someone might judge me. They're all judging me. They're all saying, what's wrong with this motherfucker? But acting, that's acting. Directing is also embracing the totality of it, embracing the totality, and then accepting it. It's one thing to want to control and manipulate and make sure everything hits and goes, but you sort of lay it down, say, okay, buddy, let's go, and then the actors come in. I mean, we stage scenes. I do all these shows about procedurals, cop shows where people are just talking endlessly talking. More talking than anyone would ever do in the history of their lives. But they have to talk because the producers of television believe the audience is so stupid they'll forget the story during the commercial. So they restate the story, and they restate it with dialogue, and they talk. But the fun of that is, guys come in for rehearsal. Let's read it. Let's read the scene, because now everybody walks in with sides. And when I was an actor,
sides
are the script, the pieces of the script for that scene. They read it off. A lot of guys don't know their lines when they show up in the morning. I would no more have done that than jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. There was 45, 50 guys there standing on a stage when I was a young kid as an actor. I'm not going to walk in there and waste their time. Those guys have a lot better things to do than watch me f*** around. So I'd come in ready. But these guys don't always do that. They have a mechanism, they have a technique, and they get ready by the time we're shooting. But they really can't rehearse. But anyway, my point is, I say, come on, let's read it. And a guy will sit over here on this desk. The girl will sit over here on this chair. A guy will stand with his hands up on this wall over here, and they'll read the fucking scene. And 9 times out of 10, that's how I shoot the scene. The way they walked in and read it, with no intention of it being a scene, because they're not ready to do the scene anyway. But where they end up tells me where they can be, and it's quite wonderful. It's always got an interesting frame to it. It's always got a real reality to it. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. As a director, you got to embrace it. You got to
let it happen.
Let it happen.
The way it naturally unfolds. Try to capture that as best as possible.
And then if it's their idea, it's going to be wonderful.
They're going to be connected to it in a different way, right?
Well, directors would tell me, "Well, Jim, you walk in here and you do this, and you do this. Take the clock and do the clock here, and you do that, and walk over and answer the phone, do the thing." I said, "Wait a minute. How do you know that? How do you know that, pal, Mr. Director?" He goes, "Oh, what do you mean?" I said, "You haven't seen me do it yet. Leave me alone. Let me do it." I would do that as an actor. That's the kind of asshole that I was.
I've collected a fair amount of tattoos over my life.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found is, it depends on the tattoo artist's taste, but if I could have a tattoo artist pick the tattoo, it's a whole other ball game. Rather than me say, this has to mean something to me because, it's this and it's symbolic because of this thing that happened to me. But if I just find a really cool tattoo artist who's got good taste and I say, what do you want to do? Then I end up liking the tattoo more. They're connected to it in a different way.
I don't know much about tattoos, but that's an interesting way to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, why not? There's redundancy is the nature of human life. We will always send our children to die in war. We will always steal and lie. Redundancy is human nature. Why not just let it happen instead of trying to control it, trying to fix it?
Well, what if a scene's go like a movie just is looking like shit, or
you have to do something.
Yeah, like if you let it go and it's just
you have to do something.
The insane asylum. The inmates are running the insane asylum.
It's like molding.
You ever make something and then you watch it and you go, "This is a piece of shit."
Oh sure.
How does that feel?
Fucking many times. Not many times, but I have, of course.
Yeah.
You
ever watch something you do and just feel extremely proud of it?
Yeah.
And most of the time it's somewhere in between.
But not right away. It's tricky. That's tricky.
Why?
When I was an actor, if I did something and I saw it, The first time I hated it.
Yeah.
Always hated it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I did a picture called The Boys of Company C. It was a military picture about the Vietnam War. And it was showing down in Westwood. And I went to see it. It was the first movie I'd ever been in. First, big movie. I've been in a lot of TV shit. And I went in the theater, I sat there, and there I was, big fucking close-up, this big. 40-foot close-up of my face. Oh, fuck. It was unbearable. It was unbearable to watch. I watch it today. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the work. I was a good actor. But there's an inner voice, there's an inner monologue when you're working that you feel. And you got to have a sense of what you're doing. It's not what you're doing. It's just not what you're doing. And I keep telling actors, they said, that was lousy. I said, you don't even know. You don't even know. It's lousy. You have no idea what that was. I do. Let's go. Let's move on. Maybe it's true. Because there's an inner monologue, there's an inner energy that we feel.
You get that with actors, they want to redo the shot over and over again.
Of course.
And
and unless they're big, I'll give them one. That's it. Unless they're, Liev Schreiber or somebody, you got to listen to what they have to say.
it is a fascinating phenomenon. I make music. I make my own electronic music. And there's a couple things I've noticed. One is the effect of time on something. There's some things I'll do, and I think it's a lost cause, and I'll put it on a shelf for good, hopefully, and I never want to look at it again.
Right.
2 or 3 years go by, and suddenly I listen to it, and it's fantastic. It's not what I remember at all.
Right.
And how does that happen? I think in part, there's also, if you look at a picture, if we all took a picture of ourselves and we looked at it, and wanted to check out how it looked, I would look right at myself, and I would say I look like a dipshit. You guys all look great, but why am I like that? I'm just and our voice too. A lot of people have issues with the sound of their own voice. Hate the way it sounds, but it doesn't come off. We have this.
I'm sure they do. They don't. I don't bother me with that shit. I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
But our own perception of ourselves is wrong.
But the best way I could describe it is what I was trying to say a minute ago, is that there's something inside that's calibrating, that's understanding what's going on, and it's mistaken.
Is that the stale small voice kind of within?
But it's mistaken.
Yeah.
It's mistaken. It's not what
That thing that's calibrating.
What
What is that? What is it then?
Huh?
What is that thing that's inside that's calibrating?
It's a narcissistic, self-involvement.
Self-propulsion.
It's sort of a waste of time.
But
it's also how we judge what we're doing. That's how we monitor where we are.
So there's some intelligence to it, yeah?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But as a performer, as a musician, I just been listening to Bob Dylan's book Chronicles.
Okay.
Read by Sean Penn. The book is I've read it 4 times. It always does the same thing for me. I read the beginning about New York when he was a kid in New York getting started. It's fascinating. Then he gets into a whole section where he's unhappy with himself, unhappy with his work, unhappy with the stuff he's writing. He's writing shit and putting it in a drawer, and he hates it. And he hates it. And I can't stand it. I don't want to hear Bob Dylan talk that way. I don't want to hear that shit.
You listen through
everything he ever made, to me, had something extraordinary about it. That's just the way it goes. And there's something energetic about that as well. Bob Dylan has nothing to do with it. There's something in that man that energizes all this. He's a brilliant, giant man, songwriter, in my opinion, artist, writer. But he's also got an energy that fits into the universe properly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's something about art.
And there's that quality that certain artists have that you can't
replicate,
and you can't really even develop.
That's right.
You will see it develop in certain people. I think it's controversial, but the comedian Louis C.K. He blew up at some point.
Yeah.
But I remember watching this reel of him and all these clips of him throughout his career. I mean, he was a lifelong career comic, and you just see him as a young man just stand up, and then all of a sudden, like lightning struck with that dude, and he took off, and he caught some sort of wave.
Absolutely true.
And everybody was on a ride.
But also, it's not just him. It's the world itself that he's sitting in that somehow finds a way to surround him properly.
The time's right. It's the audience. Yeah. But there's that quality. There's certain musicians too. It's like they can't make a mistake. Even their mistakes are just right. And
It's true.
And you could have 2 people play the same note. You hear this, 2 people could say the same thing, and one person it's different, right? Because it's coming from a different place. It reaches you in a different place.
That's why art has different mechanisms that are in operation. Art for me to write. I write nonsense all the time. I write little stories and little poems and all kind of stuff. It's not about what the people who read it feel. It's about what I feel doing it. It's a methodology. It's a medicine for me. Then if it goes out there and affects somebody, that's a whole other aspect of it. But that's not that's not what I should be concerned with. I need to keep communicating. I need to keep working. If I'm making my picture, how the audience responds is none of my business. It's none of my business.
It's funny, that begs the question, like, is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Like if you study philosophy, there's that kind of tension between is the art just beautiful, just aesthetically out there, like a scene, right? Like whenever we see a scene, like a beautiful mountain scene, it's both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. There's got to be a little terror in it, otherwise it wouldn't be that beautiful, right? But this is a philosophy of art. Is it in the eye of the beholder, or is it an aesthetic thing that just exists and then everybody else witnesses it? I think it's a blend of both, a little bit, right? But there's a lot of philosophy. I mean, I think even Nietzsche wrote about it.
Yeah, the philosophy of aesthetics.
Yeah, the philosophy of aesthetics. I went down that rabbit hole years ago, and I'm kind of hurting on who was maybe Dante's theory of art, the end of art, because his whole thing was art will go to a certain point, and then the Brillo box, the Andy Warhol Brillo box, is the death of art. That's what he would say, right? And it goes from copying, like the Platonic people, right? Like the clay statues that are real. And you can
real depictions of the human form.
Right. These beautiful Greek statues with penises and everything, right? And so it's a mimesis, it's copying, and then it's evolved from abstract realism and Van Gogh and all this stuff,
surrealism,
and then it goes all the way back to the Brillo box, and it's like art's dead.
But of course, I don't agree.
Right? No, I think it's gone into film. Actually, I think. There's this aesthetic beauty out there, in cathedrals, and you go to Europe or all over the place. But and I think in America we've adopted this brutalism art as far as our cities and big boxes, and it is ugly.
It's also interesting how tied to religion art has been historically, for so long, and then it's become sort of untethered from religion. And I've heard some criticisms. At some point, it becomes like a comment on a comment on a comment.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
And it's not the cathedral, it's not the mass, it's not Bach anymore.
Right.
It's just someone who's trying to put their idea.
It's pop.
But
it's
also
poppy.
people try to go farther. I don't want to do that anymore. They did that. Now I'm going to do this.
Right.
This is more important. This is. You go through it. The simple reality of kids and music. When I was a teenager, there was certain music I loved, and I still do. Mm-hmm. My kids were born. They lived, and they got into music. I didn't relate to it. They loved it. It goes on and on and on. It's our perception. It's where we are as human beings that tell us what something is. But we have to keep creating. That's the key for me. As humans, we have to keep creating. You never stop.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question that a lot of people don't like? Not because it's a very serious question, but maybe because the opposite. But do you have a favorite movie? What has come to your mind without thinking about it?
First movie
that comes to your mind.
Tom Jones.
Tom Jones. Okay, why?
It's sexy. It's beautiful. It's romantic. It's exquisitely, created. Tony Richardson's movie with Albert Finney and Susanna York about the Henry Fielding novel. It's my favorite movie of all time. I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. And there's movies like that. Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, there's different qualities that really make a movie good for me. One is if it's evocative. There's certain movies that can make me cry.
Yeah.
That can make me feel things that are profound. There's certain movies that will sit with you. I'll watch some great movies and the next day and I'm just back to my normal life. But there's other movies that maybe I didn't think were so great, but it just lingers. Do you know that? Where you feel a little bit different. Sure. You feel a bit transformed.
Yeah.
You go into work the next day and it's like something happened. Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
What I like more than anything is to laugh.
To laugh.
I better laugh.
You better laugh.
It better be funny, or life is hard, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
the art of humor is interesting. There's a band called the Bad Plus that I saw perform live. This kind of avant-garde jazz trio, and they were so funny. There was something almost circus-like about their performance, and I was so fascinated with the way, because it was still to me high art, but it was funny. And it didn't take itself so seriously, and it was such a fantastic ingredient to have in it.
That's the key for me, and I'm just a pedant,
Well, what's the best comedy then?
But anything that's sort of turns the seriousness on its head.
Right.
You know, I'm the guy who wants to fart in the church.
Yeah.
I just want to do that. You know?
Yeah.
My old man was a deadly serious man. My old man grew up in the Depression, fought in World War II, came out of it into the McCarthy period as an actor in Hollywood when he was being accused of being a communist. You know, the nuclear thing was going on.
Was your dad on that list?
Well, yeah, I think he wasn't on that list.
Any actors at that time were kind of
But
default.
he refused to testify. They didn't go after him. He was a kid, but he refused to testify against anybody. You know, but he was a deadly serious man. My old man would say, "What? He'd drink bourbon at night. You know, he'd come home from working on a movie or whatever. He'd be drinking bourbon and he'd ask you a question, and if you said A, he'd say B, and you said, well, C, he'd go D." And it was, you better fight. My old man and I fought tooth and nail from the time I was 11 years old. 11, 10, 12 years old.
All the way till the end?
Well, no, because I finally stopped fighting. When I got into recovery, I stopped fighting. Big deal. He said to me one day, "You don't make fun of anybody anymore. You don't ridicule. You're not sarcastic anymore, because of this silly recovery stuff. Trying to be loving and tolerant, you know, and not be
Cease fighting everything and everyone.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't succeed because I got a bride that is rough.
Well, but there is something about really serious, like, so there's a scene, and it's funny. Tropic Thunder is one of my favorite comedies.
Funnier now, dude.
I laugh. I have to watch that movie every couple months just to get a belly roll. And you see Tom Cruise, very serious actor, right? He's always serious. He's always the guy, right?
Yeah.
But when he's in that fat suit and he's this
Playing Harvey Weinstein.
Oh my God, he steals the show.
Well, the beginning of that movie, as a guy who makes movies,
Right.
is hysterical.
It's
I laughed so hard the first time I saw that, I almost pissed in my pants. I was there with my kids, and when that guy was saying the bombs were coming in, they had the napalm set up, the tree line, the effects were coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there many times. Many times. We just say the line, you asshole! I gotta blow this tree up. I gotta blow this village up. God damn it! I don't give a makes any sense. Say the line. I mean, it's hysterical. It's hysterical.
It is
because
hysterical.
that's what actors do.
Yeah.
Actors go, but what about me? You! I'm making a movie here. You know? I hate to say that.
But there is something about serious people when they get into comedy, they're almost better than a comedian.
Well, they've always said that comedy is the hardest thing to do.
It is, okay.
And if a really good actor gets a really good comedian, a Jackie Gleason or I don't know, there's hundreds of people you can mention.
Yeah.
Do drama, they're always really good at it.
Really good, like captivating.
Jim
Even
Carrey.
like Chappelle, even when he's done these little side roles, he's just so
he's wonderful.
There's something to him, you know.
Well, I mean, Robin Williams. Robin Williams is a wonderful, straight actor. You know?
Yeah, Jim Carrey as well is brilliant. Claire and I are rewatching Mad Men. John Hamm is the lead, and he's just very dapping, you know.
Did you watch him on? What's the show called about the Minnesota?
Fargo, or is it Fargo?
Yeah,
Fargo.
You see John Hamm.
I haven't seen him on that.
You gotta watch it.
Fargo's insane.
But that's a great show. First of all, every season they do it.
He's become sort of a comic.
He's hysterical.
He's hysterical in general, but in that role, he's so serious, and it's interesting how that carries over.
No, it's very cool. The most exquisite thing in life is to laugh your ass off. Mm-hmm. The rest of this shit is crazy.
Just the
it doesn't
feeling.
make any sense.
Just the feeling we just got from just laughing at Tropic Thunder, like reincarnating a scene.
Well, you lose.
Feels good.
You lose.
You feel good.
You lose control, right?
Yeah.
A real laugh you can't hold back.
It's cathartic on a major level. Just like
that's what's so great about a good comic is they can make you laugh at something you shouldn't laugh at, and you have no control over it.
Well, and there's a little truth in what they're saying,
Always.
And that's why you laugh.
Yeah,
because they're pointing at something.
They make you laugh.
Yeah, they're the canary in the coal mine.
You know, in the meetings, the 12-step meetings you go to, you can very serious, pompous bullshit going on, and I don't like anything. I can't stand it.
Yeah,
you can't make me sit there and do this. I won't.
We're not
do
a
it.
glum lot.
You guys hear that way I hear. I'm out of my fucking mind. I can't do that. I'm not going to be. Oh well, don't you think? Yeah, fuck you. You know, we're lucky to be alive, dude. We're lucky to be alive, and it's so exquisite to be alive. I mean, what you guys are doing here, it's very, very, very cool.
So you're sober, yeah, like all of us.
Yeah.
It's been a big part of your life.
Huge.
Yeah.
Well, do you think so? It's funny because I've tried to help a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics over the years, and one common thing, and I was talking to Chris about this before because I wanted to hear your perception on this. It's this draw. The new thing is ayahuasca and doing all these drugs and tripping out, right? But with artists type, drug addicts and alcoholics, which a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics are artists, right? Default. They have that kind of personality.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of guys go back out and either kill themselves or like lose everything after being sober, and being, kind of building a life together because of this weird idea. It's almost like a possession that doing the drugs makes your art better.
Yeah.
It enhances it. And I think there's truth in that. I do. Look at some of the greatest artists that have ever lived, Jimi Hendrix, you could go down the list. And there is like this shooting star kind of thing, this genius drug addict dude he just doesn't care, and he's just so narcissistic, and but it's a weird thing that happens with these artists. And you're an artist, and you've been an artist your entire life, and you got sober in the middle of your career.
Yeah, I got similar when transition from acting to directing.
Right, and you're kind of an example to somebody like me or Chris because you adopted the 12-step lifestyle, and it enhanced you.
Yeah.
Instead of
that's bullshit.
Right.
I think the reason you feel like it makes it better.
Right.
Is because we have capacity for fear. We have the capacity to feel that we can fail. We're afraid of failing. We don't want to fail as artists. Mm-hmm. And there's an exhausting quality to that feeling.
You think the drugs just help alleviate the
and
fear?
You do your thing, and you get drunk. You do your thing and you get high, and eventually that can segue right into being high all the time.
Right. Well, I think of Jackson Pollock. He would just get blacked out,
fucked out, and just start throwing paint.
Yeah. Right.
Start throwing paint.
But when you stand in front of one of his paintings, at the MoCA or wherever, it's just like holy.
But we're back to the same thing again. We're back to the perception of the audience. Right. We're back to whatever that head is that's looking at Dr. Jackson Pollock. Whatever's in that head is connecting with that.
Right.
That becomes chaos. That guy's painting.
Right. Yeah. So it's in the eye of the beholder again.
He was insane, weeping over his mother and going crazy and fucking slopping shit around.
Right.
But that's art. That's art.
But like,
I don't think Da Vinci could have done that.
Right, but
his stuff was too detailed.
Right. If you see, if you're a struggling artist or you're a drug addict and you're an artist as well, and you see that and you think, oh, it's like a calling. Like, I got to go get just
disease. We got a disease that tells us that shit's cool.
Right.
We got a disease that explains that to us.
Right.
That's a lie. Because the truth of it, when I got sober back in '84, I was with a guy who was helping me, and he said, "You think you can't work? I had to walk on the set and act. I was in a show." And I remember walking up the steps of the set, this police station I was working in, and thinking, everybody's going to know I'm sober. Everybody's going to know I'm sober. It was insanity. My disease was working so hard. But the truth was, he said, get sober, see what happens. Because what happens is you become totally free. And then the fear has much less power.
Right.
The fear has much less power. It's there, and you got to work through it. You always have to work through it. But to be free, and also you're healthier. Your energy's flying through your body and through your brain and through your fingers. If you're whatever you do,
right?
The whole instrument's alive, instead of sort of fighting its way through the. I remember going to work as an actor, hungover, been up all night drinking, going to work, and just having to figure out a way to manage it.
Right.
To manage it, and then you look at the performance and you go, well, that's pretty interesting, weird, fucking weird. It's not, but you're fighting for your life. When you're sober and you're free, you got every bit of your energy there at your disposal. The joy can really manifest. It can be, holy, let's do this and have some fun. I don't know what it's like to be a musician, but what I do, I'm acting. First of all, I got to have my energy. I got to have my power. If I'm working on stage, I got to be strong. It's at this point, my brain's so fucking useless. It doesn't matter anyway.
I guess, but initially drugs, alcohol, it sort of gets us out of the way. That can be, can stand in the way of an artist and their art, because they're just in their head. They're thinking about, this isn't good enough. What are people going to think? Okay. And so initially that substance,
it breaks the wall.
It channels it into where it needs.
Gets that out of the way, and so there's a certain naturalness that can occur, but it's short-lived, right?
And if you're a true alcoholic, right? If you have disease in your mind.
And there's also the starving, suffering artist, which is a cliche, and I'm sure for a reason. David Lynch, famous director, he's a guy who's like a transcendental meditation, and he's sober and really believes that all that stuff is bullshit, just like you said, and I'm sure that's true. But there is that cliche for a reason of of the lonely, suffering artist. Maybe in part that person has to be willing to go to places that a lot of people don't need to go because they have their ideas that keep them safe, and they can just have them in common with each other, and they don't have to, you see these in in recovery communities too, right?
I don't want to do that though.
Recovery communities, there's certain ideas that it's like, okay, here it is, let's just stick to this. It's our nice little life raft, like let's just stay in the middle of the herd and not.
It's our binky.
It's our But some people.
Binky.
Yeah.
That's my grandson's thing.
There's a dangerous, adventuresome quality to someone who's willing to.
Yes, be free.
Be free.
Be free.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the 60s. Dope and drunk. Everybody was drunk, first of all. Everyone was drunk. All the parents were drunk.
Yeah.
Because they all came out of
driving
World War II.
around drunk.
They all came out of World War II. Levittown, the recreation of our society. Everything was changing. They were all, they were drinking at night and partying there was a big, massive party going on when that war ended, And so we were drinking when we were kids. That's why I drank a lot. I didn't use too many drugs until I got later in the 60s. When I started working in Venice, teaching acting down there with the poverty program and stuff. Smoking a little weed with ether, soaked in ether and that kind of shit. Then I got down to Mexico. I started smuggling a little bit. And I got to the Percodan. They're selling Percodan over the counter for 8 pesos for a 20 thing script. You get 20 Percodan pill for
that
20.
Percodan really changed your life.
Totally. That was the answer. But the problem was you couldn't do the thing that was most important, which was love, sex. I took 8 of those Percodan, and I go down to the Peril.
What happened?
Couldn't do shit.
Couldn't do it.
It was caught. And the Percodan was there to replace that feeling, that exquisite ecstasy, sexual ecstasy. It was there to replace it. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
and
like a synthesized
precludes all the shit
version.
you're trying to get to.
Yeah. It handicaps you.
It's a little hack. You can just kind of get this synthesized version of
Yes.
that.
Right.
But you're not. But
pleasure,
that's
but it
supposed to be just a
deprives
stopgap
you.
for a moment, not forever. And then you go to try to, and you have an opportunity to have that thing you're looking for, and it's like it can't happen.
Right. It's
So
the same
so
as
is
the first time.
that why you got sober?
No, no, I didn't. I got sober because my wife said, "I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids."
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I was a father now, and I had children, and I was in a marriage that I had no tools to deal with. My wife had her reality, and I had my reality. We were constantly in conflict. And I was very insecure, and I wanted her love, and I wanted her fealty, and she was committed to another culture, to another bunch of people, her family and the people she came from. And I mean, she was my wife, and we had a very healthy, relationship, but I didn't have everything I wanted. And I was a selfish punk. And so I used, and I took pills, and I did all kinds of shit and then she said, "I'm leaving."
Has that drive to get everything you want, this is one life, and you got to live it to the fullest, has that waned over time?
What waned?
I need to get everything that I want. This fear that if I don't get everything I want.
Yeah. It has, but it's become something else.
What has it become?
It's become, I've got everything I want.
Yeah.
It's
So
become, I
gratitude.
can't believe how fucking great my life is. I can't believe all the shit that's going on here. I told you, I got 8 grandkids. I got 4 beautiful children that are grown people now. Fascinating artists, creative people, wonderful, extraordinary people. My wife and I are still doing this thing, you guys. We're still doing this marriage thing, which is extraordinary. I mean, we've just recently gone through a very rough patch. I got cancer diagnosis, and she's had some physical problems, and she's getting old, and she's in her 80s now, and we're snipping at each other. But the truth is, that snippy stuff makes me very uncomfortable. And I have to go back to the source. I have to go back to my knees. I have to say, please, let me be concerned with me and my problems and be of service to all these people. Nobody owes me a damn thing. I mean, I'm the luckiest son of a bitch that ever lived. Earlier on, talking about this military shit. We were sitting watching Private Ryan.
Oh,
My 2 boys and myself, Jake and Andel and myself, back in the day, watching Private Ryan. This movie starts. and the D-Day thing happens, and that 20-minute period where those people are being assaulted with ordnance, and they're getting shot out of those landing craft, and they're falling into the water, and the bullets are whizzing everywhere, and I realize that men have been doing this shit since the dawn of time. The dawn of time, they've been running into spears, they've been running into cannon fire, they've been running into machine gun fire, they've been doing it forever. And I'm sitting with my two boys, and none of us had to do it. None of us had to do it. My brothers didn't have to do it. My father did. His father did. You know, his father was in the Civil War. My dad's great grandpa was in the Civil War. They've all had to do this shit, and I didn't have to do it. Right there is one of the greatest gifts that a human being can have.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that a while ago you said, you know, there was a point in time when we thought things were getting better and we were living more peacefully, and that just hasn't been the truth. And I would like to say that you've contradicted yourself right now.
Probably. I agree.
And then maybe it is. Maybe things have gotten better.
But for me, there's still a lot of young men that are going out there getting their asses whooped.
Yeah.
You know, in agreement with their grandpas who are sitting there scratching their nuts somewhere else. I mean, I hate to argue about it, but I have been blessed. I have been blessed. I didn't have to go and do that shit. And then I got to make movies about it and understand it to a certain degree, what it all meant, so I have deep respect for it. My head's full of shit. My head's full of all kinds of information and joy and music and art. I was raised with great bookshelves of literature in my house, my old man's house. I was music, and constant music from the time I was like 6, 7 years old. You know, art. It was all there. Movies. Going to the movies. Theater. The old man was constantly doing plays. I'm the luckiest guy that ever lived. You know?
I did want to ask you about, you mentioned your cancer. I'm just very fascinated to hear. I know you've had some health scares recently, and what your thoughts have been on all of that over this last year, over this last decade, over whatever it is, as someone who's closer to
cancer.
The end of the tunnel than maybe we are. What do you think about that?
I think about it a lot, and I don't think about it at all.
Are you afraid of it?
Me.
Are you afraid of those last moments when things really start to wind down, and what that's going to be like? Terrified?
Terrified. I can't comprehend it. I can't comprehend it. I've had AFib problems all my life with my heart. I've had blockages, you know. I've had angioplasties done. They got the cancer thing going. They've given me hormones. I've done all this shit. The cancer now is gone, but most of my body doesn't work anymore. I got sharp pains in my leg. I got circulation problems. But I'm just trying to live. I don't know if I'm unusual in this sense. I move past that shit. I don't dwell on it.
And then what about the age-old question of what's to come? What does that look like from you right now, from your vantage
that's
point?
an interesting one. Because we got a lot of religion around our house. We got Islam, we got Hinduism and Christianity, and a lot of yak about that stuff going on. My sponsor in the 12-step program that I'm a member of said something very interesting to me years ago, and I've been very deeply grateful for it ever since. He said, "You didn't want to come out of the womb. The last thing you wanted was to come out of the womb into this world.
That's a good point.
You didn't want to do it. That was bitching there. That was it, man. So what do we know? What do we know?
Right.
I don't know shit. And there's too much going on here to worry about that stuff. I do worry about it. Of course you do. In the dark of the night. When this thing's burning, my foot's burning, and I got this eye problem. I got all kinds of shit going on. I'm an old relic. But I don't know. Sit in the meeting tonight with all you guys and bullshitting and cracking jokes and feeling good and being alive. I'm going to go home here and see the wife. She's going to give me a dirty look. And we're going to hang out together, get in the same bed together and sleep. Life is bitching, man. Life is bitching. Well, to be a human being, to be a sentient creature, I always say this shit. Who could ask for more? Who could ask for more? And then get a chance to communicate. Then get a chance to do art. And they get a chance to manifest all these crazy things and be free. There's no right way or wrong way to do any of this shit. What you guys are doing, the AI is taking over the world. The algorithms are devouring humanity, and you guys are locked up in a cave, bullshitting, trying to find the truth. What's happening? What's happening, guys? What's happening out there? I think it's cooler than shit.
Indeed, it is.
Is that a good place to maybe end it?
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for joining us, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That was fantastic. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that for sure. It's gonna be fantastic.
Thanks for letting me be involved. I love being
yeah,
here with you.
yeah.
Man.
And this
cool.
is still the ground floor of this thing, so more is to come to our audience for sure.
I love it.
So,
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah,
I hope it wasn't totally mundane nonsense.